Good evening, everyone. Recorded by Richter back with a brand new video segment for you. This is another artist highlight. I hope before we get into this that everyone is having a happy Memorial Day weekend. It is actually Memorial Day right now as I record this. And also going on downtown right now is the Movement Music Festival, which is Detroit's electronic dance music festival, which is kind of why I chose right now to put this video out. And this video is going to be highlighting Detroit Area Techno Band, Doogatron. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Doogatron, Doogatron is a three-piece techno band made up of Stevie T on bass synth with some additional layering and editing and mixing, Kyle Frater on the drum programming, and Mike Croto on polysynth. The reason I chose to focus on these guys is because Doogatron has just released a brand new album called Burn Material that is available now on Bandcamp. I would ask you to go there to support them because I don't think that they have this project on any of the other DSPs right now. But if you go on Bandcamp, that's the best way to support artists anyways. You can get their brand new album for $7, but you could get their full discography, which they have a lot of material, for like $30. I bought originally it for like $25, and then I bought their new album today. So I have their full discography on Bandcamp, and it's well worth it. They put out a ton of stuff, and they do cool mixes. There's a lot of fun stuff to follow along with. But anyways, beyond that, like I said, Movement is going on this weekend, which I'm going to do a separate video on. I was down at Movement all day yesterday at Hart Plaza area, and I had such a phenomenal time, so I'm gonna make a whole video on Movement alone. And my podcast partner E-Man is down there shooting photo for it all weekend as well, so we have plenty of stuff to get to, and we're gonna have a long form Beats, Brews, and Points of View podcast episode about Movement, so we will have plenty of stuff to cover there. Let's get to Doogatron a little bit here. Oh, actually, before I get to Doogatron a little bit, Movement organizers, if you happen to see this, it would mean the world to me and to them if you were to check out Doogatron's music, because they would be a great fit for a lineup in the future. I know Stevie T, that would be like a dream come true of his. Him and Kyle and Mike, they would lock in and work all year on their set. I know that for a fact. But anyways, let's get into it. So I don't know Mike well, but Stevie T and Kyle are two of my closest friends. My relationship with Stevie goes all the way back to middle school. Steve and I both have older sisters that are in the same grade that were friends, and that's how Steve and I met. And him and I became fast friends. We were much different in like our styles and everything like that, but I don't know, there was something that bonded us quick. And I even have like early memories of when we were in middle school. For my birthday one year, Stevie gave me Silverchair's Frog Stomp, and for his birthday, I returned the favor by getting Gish by Smashing Pumpkins for him. And then Kyle, I met Kyle separately through different friends. We all have different mutual friends and stuff. And Kyle I met through different mutual friends, and him and I became fast friends and party animals alike. Kyle and I have had some crazy nights together back in my drinking days. But Stevie and I have one of my favorite types of relationships now that I'm in my late 30s, is which we don't see each other a ton, but we have a regular line of communication through text, and we talk about music constantly, so it's nice. And we still go to shows every now and again together. A couple summers ago, him and I went and saw Queens of the Stone Age, so that was really fun. But let's get into this music stuff a little bit. Detroit is a very industrial city, and it's also dealt with a lot of destruction. In 1967, those things play into the influence of the style of music. Let's talk about the uprising in 1967 for a second. Now, there's been a long-running belief that what happened in Detroit in 1967 led to the white flight, where white folks packed up and moved to the suburbs on accounts of the riots. However, according to Jerry Herron, a professor of English at Wayne State University, this is a myth. Now, Jerry says that it actually happened more gradually, and by 1953, the city of Detroit had already established the patterns of ex-urban depopulation. He stated that the US government had gotten involved and had started building suburbs and making it favorable for people returning from World War II to start families in the suburbs as opposed to the city. That's where the new houses were being built at the time. In 1967, the uprising was caused by a long history of racist policing in Detroit and the black community being mistreated horribly. It was not about looting and stealing. It was the result of a community that wasn't going to sit there and take the racist violence any longer. These things even influenced the way Motown was set up and run. Berry Gordy had actually come up with the idea for Motown Records while working at a factory in the 50s. It's been known that he ran Motown just like a factory too, even going as far as having artists punch a time clock and get paid hourly, like a factory would run. According to artist Carl Craig, he stated that Detroit techno was different because as influenced as their sounds were by bands like Kraftwerk, they were equally influenced by the soulful nature of Motown. Although techno was popularized in Europe, it is a Black American art form that was created here in Detroit. I mention these things to say that they are also an influence on Doogatron and how their sound is created. And they're also influenced by 90s staples such as 9 Inch Nails. To quote Stevie T from Doogatron, they're a big influence on how they approach the vocals. When I asked Stevie about his vocals, Stevie stated, "Yeah, that's my voice. I overdubbed vocals on those because they were more mid-tempo and I wanted to do something different with them, but still went with an improv approach to match how we do our music." I also asked Stevie if the current state of the United States influenced their approach to recording this project, to which Stevie replied, "It's crazy because some of the oldest stuff on here was recorded back when Trump was president the first time, but I don't think we really go into recording with anything directly in mind for commentary. We absorb and metabolize the ambience of our everyday lives here, which is what we go into recording with. Whatever turns out well and gets used later is titled at the end of the process based on whatever imagery it evokes, or maybe something going on musically or the sound of it. The final commentary of the artwork and title is more of a current reflection. As long as it fits the music, it works. And I think it usually does, because techno at its roots is an art form of post-industrialization. All three of us, despite broadening tastes, as we got older, have a bit of a default tendency to prefer darker or heavier sounds, but I think coming together to do something constructive is always going to be hopeful and positive. So now let's get into the album here. Burn Material is 10 songs that build like a live set. For full disclosure, techno and country are the two genres of music that I am newest to exploring. So for a long time, I kind of had wrote these art forms off because they didn't catch my ear as quick as hip hop and soul and R&B music and rock and roll did. But I realized I was being really ignorant in my approach to things because I was just going by what I heard that was popular. I wasn't doing the homework like I had done on hip hop and rock. And even in those genres, I generally don't like what's poppy. So it makes sense to me that I wouldn't like what's poppy coming out of country and techno either. So once I changed my approach on this and started getting into the history on these things, it made these art forms more enjoyable to me. So that's kind of why it took me a little bit longer to get there. But I just wanted to state that really quick, and now we'll get into this album. So when I'm listening to techno, I'm approaching this like I'm listening to a live set because it's largely instrumental. And so that's kind of how I hear the music in my head, is almost like I'm at movement, hearing this as a set being played out to me. So the album starts off with a track called Symptomatic, and this kind of feels like a warm-up, like it's kind of like introducing you to the project and getting your brain kind of settled in and ready. It features drums that kind of feel reminiscent of 9 Inch Nails style approach, and it also has Stevie doing these distorted improv vocals over it. And that leads right into track 2, which is Aura Farming, which almost in the beginning, in the very first minute, kind of feels like a continuation of the warm-up, but then it starts to extend the sound. And there's a percussion noise in here that I need to ask Stevie about. I'm gonna put it in the little clip so you could hear what I'm talking about. It's a noise that I've been hearing in hip-hop beats for forever, and I want to know what it is. I love it. I'm a giant fan of this sound, and it's got to be called something because it's like an exact sound. And I'll show you, Steve, what I mean here in a second. But I feel like it starts to expand this groove a little bit into Aura Farming, and has this droning kind of feel to it, leading into Heat Dome, which is track 3. And this is kind of quite literally when the album picks up the heat, if you will. First 2 tracks had more of a dark gothic feel, where this 3rd track now, Heat Dome, has more of like an upbeat dance vibe going on to it. And I'd like to add here that the techno that Doogatron makes also feels very progressive to me, much in the way that progressive rock bands gradually build their tracks to these big climatic endings. I feel like that's kind of how Doogatron builds their albums, in a sense. It kind of feels like each one adds a little bit more, and each one's a little bit more involved than the track before, in a sense. So Heat Dome goes into Profit Extraction, which I believe was the first single, if I'm not mistaken. But Profit Extraction, man, this track is awesome. It's so cool. It starts with this thumping bass and then slowly kicks into gear by building one of my favorite sections on the album. I love songs that are long. This song is a 9-minute epic that is literally exciting from start to finish. There's no dull moments. There's no filler in this track. It's literally 9 minutes of excitement. And I feel like if this was a live set, like if Doogatron was actually playing this out live, this is when people would really be getting into the groove and really be locking into their dance steps and finding the fun in it, because it's a really great track. It's a really big standout to me, which works its way into track 5, which is Occupation Body Count. I'm sorry. I really enjoy the way each song transitions into the next. This is something that Doogatron does very well to keep it feel like a cohesive project. Great transitions in between songs that are engaging, and I think that is one of the qualities that I really like about techno music, is they know how to keep a party started. I love when albums have that feel where it feels like it could be one piece of music. That was the intention, is to hear it all together. So that's what I think Doogatron does well with these. And then track 6, we have Debris Zone, which starts off with these kind of airy synths before you get to these gut-punching low ends, which is like a cool little juxtaposition, it feels like to me, in a little bit of sounds. This song is a lot of fun with the synth work and has a lot of swirling going on before you get to the ending, which hits you into the next track, Slot Machine. This is kind of like that section of the album where the BPMs are punched up and it's starting to get faster. And so Slot Machine does that, and it almost feels like, the best way I can describe this is it almost feels like it could be scoring a Speed Racer video game. There's a lot of sounds in here from the synths and so on that give it almost that 80s, 90s video game quality song structure to it. Like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it feels like something that could be in a video game of that era. And sometimes there's other things in this album that do that for me too. There's like stuff that kind of give me almost a feeling of Mario or a Paperboy. I don't know, it's kind of just in there. I don't know if 80s synth was part of the influence behind this, if some of that kind of stuff was influencing this project. So I would be interested to ask Stevie about that as well. But from Slot Machine, we go into track 8, which is Unlimited Hangout, which is a perfect title for it because it's almost a 15-minute song. So it almost feels like an unlimited hangout in a sense. You're gonna be hanging out a while on this track. So I wrote that it's even more epic than Profit Extraction, being that it's 15 minutes and rivals bands like Pink Floyd, who have classically made long songs like Dogs, which is on their track Animals, which is like 18 minutes long. This track gets really intense and it takes you on a journey. And one thing that I would suggest to you, which is something that I had a lot of fun doing, is going on a bike ride. And this song during the bike ride was pretty fun. It felt like I was in a video game, bobbing and weaving through the city. So I highly suggest listening to techno while you're out on a bike ride, and more specifically listening to this techno. Go listen to Burn Material while you're doing it. So now we get into track 9, which is Honey Trap. And Honey Trap is kind of a strange tune that plays with some vocal sampling and some interesting percussion work. This one's kind of now leading into the conclusion of the album, which is track 10, which is another long 9-minute track, which is called Automatic World. That feels like a bit of a return to track 1, Symptomatic, which in the vocals and the drumming specifically is where it kind of has a similar, not the same, but a similar thing, which is called bookending. I've learned over from talking to Steve and listening to Die Stack podcast, which I'm a big fan of. I can give an example of this, which I saw one time live, which I loved. It was a String Cheese concert. String Cheese Incident is a jam band that is known for doing amazing shows live. And at Electric Forest, it's kind of their festival where they get to play 3 of the 4 nights, 2 sets each day. And one of the sets, one of the years I saw them, they played, I forget the song that they played, but they started with one song, went into about a 75-minute jam, ended with the same song, show over. One song. That was pretty much the whole thing. So they started with it, went on this huge journey, and then brought it back to the very first song and closed it out, which I thought was so amazing. And so that's kind of like the example I'm bringing here with this one. So Automatic World, the bookend thing like I mentioned, and it kind of feels like a perfect way to end a show if they were to be playing this live. And man, I kind of feel like I hope Doogatron are able to do some shows. I know they're all busy people, but if they're able to, I would just straight up do this album start to finish. It works like that. And I think that's what's cool about techno is these guys do, in a sense, and especially, I know I can't speak for all techno, but I can speak for Stevie T and Kyle. Their recording sessions are kind of improv in a sense. They just do what feels natural to them. And obviously you're gonna edit out some stuff that doesn't work and leave in stuff that does work, but that's kind of the organic way that they record. And I think that that's so awesome. And also I like seeing techno bands. I like seeing groups that are more than just one DJ, that are out there offering a little bit something more. These guys are incredibly high energy live, and I'm going to put some photos in here. I've been seeing them for forever, and I have some photos of them looking like babies at the Grasshopper Underground in Ferndale when they were first getting started. So I'm gonna put those up, and it's gonna be funny to see how much different we all look. But anyways, that's what I've got for this Doogatron episode. I'm going to have more stuff out on movement, like I said, and so I'm excited for everything that we have to come for you guys. But Stevie T, Kyle, Mike, very impressed by Burn Material. I think it's a great body of work. Like I said, it's available on Bandcamp, so go support them there. For local musicians on the come up, it's very important to purchase merch and purchase albums because it's hard to make it in this space. So go do whatever you can to do that, and I hope everyone's having a great Memorial weekend, like I said, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.